Hey everyone, it's Rob Ryder on Wednesday, August 21st, 2019. And today, does a DD-214 fraud equal a UCMJ violation? Or is it an act of bad faith? Is it an act of treason? Well, I say it's all of them myself. So, what we're going to do today is a by the book dissection of a DD-214 long form. In this particular case, it's copy 2. And compare it to what the manuals say, right? We'll go read the book, see what the book says, and see if they did it wrong. And if they did, then you can point to the book and say, well, it's wrong right here, and demand to have it fixed. But because it's been done, and it's going to be quite clear as soon as we get going how blatant it is that's been done. Under the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, in Article 139 is redress of injuries to property. So before I go any further, because I know that some of the people watching this video won't have been in the military, you're probably next to kin, right? So get a piece of paper and pencil handy, because you're going to want to write down some of the places I show to get the information I'm going to use to make the argument I plan on making. And you can have it too. You don't have to have been in the military to use this. You just need to know that your loved one was, and all veterans are being denied all of their benefits. They're getting table scraps. So there's a scheme going on, and I've shown it in other videos, and we'll get into all that in a bit. But I just really wanted to stop and say, hey, get a piece of paper and pencil. So in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, at Article 139, it says, whenever complaint is made to any commanding officer that willful damage has been done to property of any person, or that his property has been wrongfully taken by members of the armed forces, he may, under such regulations as the secretary concerned may prescribe, convene a board to investigate the complaint. So it'd be like a court of inquiry. All right, so any person who believes that property has been damaged can file a complaint with, quotes, commanding officer, whoever that ends up being, that either your property has been damaged or it's been wrongfully taken by members of the armed forces. Okay, so what I'm going to say then is if that's the case, if they did my DD-214 incorrectly, well beyond just being an error, right, that it's fraudulently done. In fact, it's so fraudulently done that the truth would be, well, I've never been released from the military. They never gave me a DD-214. They gave me a piece of paper that claims to be a DD-214, but is full of errors and omissions. And it was signed by an officer. Well, then the Army took my property. I want it back. And so we'll get into that here in just a bit. So, hey, does it bother you that the United States is under martial law? If you didn't know it, it is. That's why there's gold-fringed flags in courtrooms, in mayor's offices, in township halls, in churches. That is a flag that can fly only on a military installation, or an Army installation, actually, is what it says in AR 840-10, the regulation on the flag. And the gold fringe flag in particular, to be displayed in a courtroom, can only be displayed in military courtrooms. Then why is it when people go to court, there's gold fringed flags in the courtroom? It's a simple answer. We're under martial law. So, you need a lot of what I've been trying to do is, well, how do you protect yourself from that? For myself, as a veteran, I should be able to get from the Department of Defense a United States Armed Forces Geneva Conventions ID card. But so far, they haven't wanted to give me one. But whether you are in the military or not, at a time of war, which we are now, because there's gold fringe flags in the courtroom, then under the Geneva Convention, the nation has a duty to keep this registry of protected persons. And there should be a way to get your name on that list. but they don't seem to want to do that either. So, you can read a lot of things of what are supposed to happen, but they're not. And so the question is, what do you do about it? So that's what I'm trying to do, is figure out what to do about it. Hey, so does it bother you that many veterans are homeless? A whole bunch of veterans living on the streets that don't need to be. The only reason they are is because they haven't been given all of their entitlements. Does it bother you that veteran suicides rates have skyrocketed? Well, yeah, they're under a lot of stress, man. They're living on the fucking street because the VA won't help them out and give them their property. So the VA treatment of veterans bother you? Yeah, if it does, right? If any of those things are true, and you want answers, well, I want answers, then please donate. Right? Send it to PayPal, robryder at AOL.com, ROBBRYDER at AOL.com. Send it in the mail to Robert Allen Retluski at 10955 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan 49341. You can send it Western Union. You can send it Myers, or whatever the other big box store, Walmart, uses. Right? But make sure you spell my name right, and make sure you spell your name right. And they make it kind of complicated to do, but it can all work. And so, I forgot to put my email address is Court of Record, COURTOFRECORT, Court of Record at AOL.com. And my phone number is 616-712-6179. See, I'm not hiding from anybody at any time. Right? I'm not running off with anybody's money. So if you can, please donate so that I can pay the bills I have, so I can do this all the time with my mind focused on this instead of, well, how am I going to pay my rent this month? Because here's the things I found. This is all this is where the devil lives. The devil lives in the details. And in the things we're going to see in like note 7 of some obscure page, you would read things except like this, that except for those with a DCSS in force to be used for RA soldiers ineligible for, barred from, or otherwise denied reenlistment that are separated on completion of enlistment. So you could be separated on completion of enlistment and then barred from reenlistment if that note 7 was attached to whatever it is they're going to say has something to do with you. Oh, and there's another 7 in my case. It's funny, there's 7s. Soldiers precluded from reenlistment for any reason and discharged forfeit retirement eligibility altogether, as reentry on active duty for the purposes of applying for retirement is not allowed. Did you know you have to be on active duty to apply for retirement? Well, you do. And so, as you can see, you could be precluded from reenlistment for any reason. That reason simply could be so that you could apply for retirement. But now they're not going to let you. And so that's kind of what they did. Because of the codes they gave me, that's the defect I have in my record, the way that the record shows. But the record has lots of errors. So we're going to look at that. So let's get some other things out of the way. If you wanted to do this on your own, right, you're going to have some documents, whether it's you or your loved one. You need a long form of the DD-214. I'll show you in a minute what that means, but basically what it means is there's some that have a little bit more at the bottom than the rest. And to get that form, you can either get it online if it wasn't that long ago, right? This is from National Archives now. This is who's saying it. Archives.gov under Veterans Military Service Records. So basically just Google request military service record and you'll end up at this page. And I'll tell you what to do it, right? Just go do it. And order up the page. And then another thing we're going to find out is there's these VSOs, Veteran Service Officers, which people in the VA, or who, veterans know who Veteran Services Officers are. That's a term that we're familiar with, but they don't seem to be much help. Well, what we're going to do is bring them the proof, right? And then have them take the proof somewhere and see if that does anything. That's one thing that might be able to be used for, is getting your records corrected if we provide them the proof instead of them believing what they've been told in the past, which is really more like customs, right? So what's happening is customs are being put in place of law. And we need to take the law, the book, to them and say, no, the book says this. This is what I want you to do for me. And whoever they contact then, because they're an official that can do the contacting, maybe that will make the difference. But the other way to do it is they have these ways to, for correction of military records, discharge upgrades. So knowing what I know now, I'd say, well, I need to get a discharge upgrade because my discharge upgrade says I was involuntarily discharged. Involuntarily, right? Not voluntarily, which it should have been. No, involuntarily discharged. Well, because they gave me that defect, that means I can't apply for retirement or anything else. They've barred me from reenlistment. Or they didn't because, the document isn't done right. But this is on the same page, National Personal Record Center. So Board of Corrections of Military Records, discharge upgrades, Google it. Talks about going to the VSOs first. Then you can put in a correction into a site that they have. And then you can have a review of your discharge, which is probably the one I should do. Let me see where that takes us to. Let's take a look at that. Oh, it takes us over here to get the manuals to do it. Okay, well, anyways, you have the idea of where you can get these details. And if you're new to my videos, the things I'm really talking about now started back here with this, the DOD is the fourth estate, right? I mean, specifically about looking at the paperwork to do with the DOD and what does the manual say that the DOD puts out, and are they following their own manual? And, I wanted to find something in the book that was wrong, so you point at it and say, hey, this is wrong. You're not following the book. Well, I have plenty of things now, so I'm trying to figure out where to take it to. But all of these videos here had to do with that, all of these things that are wrong, from gold fringe flags in courtrooms to the type of ID that they give you. Is it a 2S or is it not a 2S? Right? Because they also have one that's a 2, and they have other ones. But a 2S is a United States Armed Forces Geneva Conventions identification card for somebody who's in the reserves or retired. Well, that's what I wanted. I'm saying either I'm in the reserves or I'm still retired because I've never been separated from the military. It never happened. They don't do the paperwork right. And under Title 10, United States Code, Section 506, right? So 10 USC 506. It would be good to Google it and look at it. It talks in there about, during a time of war, that an enlistment continues until the end of the war. Well, we're always at war. There's always a war going on. So there's no way for you to ever get out of the war, right? Unless you voluntarily separate and get the agreement of the military, you'd still be in the military. But I wanted to go back to, this goes back further. I mean, all these things have things to do with the shit that we're talking about, or that I'm talking about. But back here, what was it, 6 months ago, in a military government, veterans are the civil authority, basically. From there on forward, all of these things have to do with, things not being the way they look, and we need to find out who to tell. And in my last video, The Politics of Faith, I had showed that the United Methodists so the Methodists have a building that's right next to the Supreme Court. It's the only non-government building on Capitol Hill. And, so this is be like an advocate's office, right? What are they? They're lobbyists. Either they're lobbyists or they're the church in the government. Because they are in this area of D.C. called the National Capital Service Area. And, it's in the area where everything else is a government building except them in this National Capital Service Area. Well, one of the things, because they're right next to the Supreme Court, if you look at the Supreme Court rules, in Rule 40, it says a veteran suing under any provision of law exempting veterans from payment of fees or court costs may proceed without prepayment of fees. Da 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 da. Right? Well, it says suing under any provision of law. It didn't say appealing. Right? Most people think you go to the Supreme Court to appeal and to get a writ of certiorari. But that's only one of the things you could get. Right? If we were going to put in a petition for the redress of grievances, which I believe we should be doing, right? And a violation of or under the First Amendment to put in for redress of grievances. And in those videos I pointed out, I talked about this idea that Justice Scalia said that the Supreme Court has never said that a lawsuit is a petition for redress of grievances. Right? Or that it's the only one. So I'm going to ask these people that are, in that area, how come that is? Because the reason this is this way, in my opinion, is under English law, which our system is based, all matters of faith were tried by the church. Well, an oath, a vow, a promise, those are all matters of faith. You either have good faith or bad faith, but they're all matters of faith. And that we need to be taking the complaint that the people we're dealing with claim to have, taken an oath of office. But when you look, they used a middle initial name, right? So they didn't do it with their proper identity. So, they don't have an oath of office. They have no authority under the Constitution. Delegated, they're just usurping it and pretending to have it. Well, we need to be taking that stuff to the church, and that'll be what I'll be doing after I did this. But I had gotten my DD 214 finally, because I had done, this thing, requested a military service record. It took about 3 weeks. And they finally sent me my DD 214, long form. Which was actually service record 2. And normally you're supposed to get 4. The service member is supposed to get copy 1 and copy 4. Well, copy 2 must be going to this place because that's the one I got. And I didn't put these circle here or letters here. These were on it when I got it. Okay, so this has all the information on it, as does the 4. But the one that they send to your state, to the Department of Veterans Affairs, is a different one. Right? State Director of Veterans Affairs. They get 6. Well, on 6, they have this part here taken out, which is 25, 26, and 27. Then it has just this narrative section. Well, when I looked up this narrative section, it didn't go to anything. It's like, well, that's just a bunch of words on there. And so, I got this before I got this one. And when I got this one, I said, well, okay, now let's see what it has here. And then I knew which manual to go look at and see what all these things mean to see what happened, right? So you really got to have the long form. Because the DD 214 first copy, it doesn't have any of that stuff on it. It stops after 21. Right? Starts right here. Member unavailable for signature. Well, that was convenient. I didn't know they were doing this to me. So this says I was discharged with the honorable, and the separation authority is some Army regulation with a particular chapter, and I was given a JBK separation code and a reenlistment code of RE-1A. Narrative is expiration term of service. Well, this narrative, as you'll see, is supposed to match what is written for this separation code, and well, I can tell you the two don't match. So, that's the DD-214 you need, and so you don't really need these other ones. I'm just showing them to show you the differences. For what we're doing today, we don't need the short version. And while this one's a good place to start because you can check this wording to see if it's in the regulation, expiration term of service. which isn't. That really isn't the proper one. You need to have either a Service Form 4 or the Service Form 2 will work because it has all of the same blocks as the 4 does. I covered that in a different video. Now, I'm in the Army, right? So this is going to be different for different services, but I think you'll be able to figure it out, right? This is an Army regulation, 635-5-1 for the separation program designator codes. And that's that number thing right here, right? So to figure out what JBK means, I had to have this manual. So you're going to need that manual or your version of it for the Navy, Marines, Air Force, whatever was used. There's another manual, right? AR 635-5. This is on separation documents. So if you're not in the Army, you might put into Google Navy separation documents, Marine separation documents. You get the idea. Download the PDF, because all of this stuff I got is online. It wasn't that hard to find. You just had to ask for it. Google will go find it for you. But you need those two for sure, because this is all about filling out the DD-214. And they're going to be the same, so they're close to the same for all the branches. So you can, for now, if you're not in the other services and you didn't have yours, you're just trying to follow along, well, the Army's isn't going to be that much different. What other ones do we have? This is 601-210, right? So AR 601-210. And this has the reenlistment codes in it, which is this code here, reenlistment code. All right, and then, so those are all the ones about where all the little details come from. And then this AR 635-200, because that's what mine said. It could be different for different people's. As you'll see, it all depends on what this code is. Right? I had to go to find this manual, 635-200. Right? So as simple as that, you could have these basic documents that you would need. And then, because I thought it was so interesting in doing this, as I had found that one of the things they needed to do under this AR 635-200 is they had to fill out one of these forms, a separation action control sheet. Because the manual is for administrative separations, right? So if they're going to administratively separate you, then they need to fill out this sheet. And it's called the DA Form 5138. So a copy of this should be on my official record, which I didn't get. And before I forget, let me go back. I made the mistake the first time of just asking for my DD-214. I should have asked for the official military personnel file. Just give me the whole damn thing. What do you have? I want everything that you have, which I'm going to do now. But I got the DD-214, right? But you can't ask for everything. So you may want to say specifically you need the DD-214 long form and you want the whole entire official personnel file, right? I was afraid it would just take longer, I think, at the time to put the file together than it would be just to get the DD-214, and that's what I really needed. But you get the idea, right? That's the stuff that we're going to be looking at, and now we're going to look at some. And kind of step through it and say, well, isn't that interesting? So give me just a second. I'm going to clear some things out and we'll get started. Hang on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is the manual to do with the separation code. Mine's a JBK. John Bravo Kilo. Let's go see what that's about. All right, and that is this manual AR 635-5-1 that has these codes in them. So right at the beginning, right, this is why you have to go through these and read them, is when the SPD codes and narrative reasons for separation are listed together, they are considered for official use only and will not be released to any agency or person outside the DoD. Well, as you can see on mine, they used a code, but they didn't use the narrative, so they weren't used together. So apparently it's not official use. But then these documents with that on there will be handled in accordance with AR 25-55, which is Freedom of Information Act for the Army, which I need to go read and see, if I can get a copy that way and see if there is one someplace that has official use only on it. Because that would signify they use the proper code and the proper narrative together, right? Are listed together. They are considered for official use only. So, we'll see. You can't take that stuff apart. Provide an option for regulatory citation, for example. Okay, so the regulatory or other authority for separations will be entered in Block 25. Block 25, that's this right here, separation authority. Okay. In accordance with AR 635-5, which is this other manual here, which has to do with how you fill the damn thing out. But we're not there yet. So this is, these are all, because they're in here, they've all been incorporated by reference. It's like anything that's incorporated by reference, and, you're going to have to go find, and if you don't find it, you won't know what that part says. And I'm sure they do it on purpose, thinking, well, you're not going to bother to go look it up. But I did. So, for example, AR 635-200, paragraph 16-4A or B, the most appropriate specific regulatory authority will be entered in Block 25 based on circumstances of the case as documented in the soldier's personnel record. Do not enter all of options in Block 25. Well, that's what they did on mine. They put in the whole thing. AR 635-200, Chapter 4, but not the specific provision in Chapter 4. Right? They didn't follow the procedure. The SPD code will be in 26, the form of the DD Form 214. Right? So what's 26? There it is, separation code. Check. I know what you're talking about. The SPD codes are not intended to stigmatize an individual in any manner. Well, excuse me. The narrative reason for separation will be entered in Block 28 of the DD Form 214 exactly as listed in Table 2-2 or 2-3 of this regulation. No deviation is authorized, but they did it anyways. You don't really have to go any further. It's wrong. I'll show you exactly how it's wrong, but the narrative doesn't match what's in the code narrative, so it's wrong. And there is no deviation authorized. So if it was done, then it was unauthorized, which means it's a violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. SPD codes are not intended to stigmatize an individual in any manner. The SPD code of a former soldier will be explained to him or her or a designated representative only upon receipt of written request. And I think this is where this idea with this AR 25-55 comes in, that we need to ask them about the code. Or that's, if it had been done right, that'd be the way it was done. So now we go through, got some blah, 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 blah. Now we're going to get into the codes. And these first codes are for officers, which I'm not, but, they have a DD-214. It's going to have the same thing. It's just their style. And you got a code, you got some narrative, and you got, what do they call that? The separation authority. Okay, but because I'm going to go look at mine. Separation for enlisted personnel. That's under 2-6. And mine's JBK, this one right here. Well, the first thing wrong with it, for me, is it's under involuntary discharge. What do you mean involuntary discharge? I voluntarily discharged. Right? The Army wanted me to stay in. They asked me to re-enlist. I said, no, I want to get out. But it's got a code, and it's got completion of required active service, right? That's the narrative. Because it says JBK, then this completion of required active service is what needs to be in Block 28. And it says expiration term of service. Well, they're not the same. And it was done under this AR, which they put in. That's in block 25. Then it said note 7. So, these are the jots and tittles. This is where the devil is in the notes. Let's go look at note 7 before we get there real quick, right? Because they do have one for voluntary discharge. And that one's KBK. That has the same thing, completion of required active service. It's all about the same. The only difference is this has note 1. This has note 7. All right, got LBK, completion of required active service. Involuntary refrad, right? So another involuntary, something for active duty. REFRAD, I have to go look it up. But basically it has the same one I have, right? All of this is the same. Involuntary, you end up with a 7 in chapter 4. All right, MBK, voluntary. Well, they get a 6. All right, so here's those codes. And mine says then, except for those with a DCSS, just some form, in force, to be used for RA soldiers ineligible for, barred from, or otherwise denied reenlistment that are separated on completion of enlistment. Well, to me, that's pretty fucked up, man. It's like, how did I get an honorable discharge if I was barred from reenlistment? Should have been a general discharge at best, but not, an honorable discharge. But that's what this code would tell you, right? And so here we are. I got a JBK, completion of required active service. I need to go look at AR 635-200 to see what Chapter 4 is all about. And Note 7 says I've gotten one that says I'm barred from reenlistment. Well, that can't be good. But simply because JBK doesn't match completion of required active service doesn't match what's on the narrative here, then it's already wrong. Right? So I should be able to take something like that to one of these veterans service officers and say, hey, this is wrong. This is what the manual says. They did it wrong. They're saying that I have been involuntarily discharged, but the narrative doesn't match. So get it fixed. Instead of us trying to do it, that's what they're supposed to do, and so they're trained to do it. Not that they would be able to, that they've ever done it, but they have the credential to do it. I think that's probably the thing. They could act as your advocate. Okay, now that was the fact that it's wrong. And we'll get into what AR 635-200 says about Part 4 and me, but let's look at what it takes to fill the damn thing out. This one, AR 635-5, not -5-1, just -5, talks about how to fill all the blanks in. Right? Ensure all information on DD-214 and other separation documents is accurate. Well, mine isn't. Well, whose fault is it then? Well, who's responsible? These people are. The Deputy Chief of Staff for Personnel, he's responsible. Chief National Guard Bureau, he's responsible. The Commanding General, Army Personnel Command, he's responsible, right? So all these people are responsible for the fact that my frickin' paperwork is wrong. So, I know who to put the claim against, somebody in this chain of command. The Commandant, Adjutant, General School. Oh, that is the other thing. So, because mine's wrong, well, who the hell signed off on it? Right? Some Deputy Adjutant General did. From the Adjutant General Corps. Right? Because the Adjutant General is, it's a corps within the military. So it's actually the Adjutant General's Corps that did it to me. This guy just acting for the Adjutant General. So he didn't do it. The Adjutant General did. And, push it up the line. And put in a complaint for Article 139 violation and lay out your claim and see if somebody will pay attention to it. That's my plan. But let's, so right now I'm gathering all my details. Okay. So ensure that each soldier entitled to receive a DD-214 is counseled and understands the following. This is the most vital document he or she will receive from the Army. Well, mine's wrong. It's like I didn't receive a DD-214. I just received a piece of paper that claims to be a DD-214. But it's not doing what a DD-214 was meant to do by regulation. Because it isn't done right. The benefits a soldier may be eligible to receive as a result of military service will be primarily based on the DD-214, so it had better be squeaky clean correct. Failing to obtain the original and copy number 4 of the DD-214, I never got mine, at separation may cause a delay in their eligibility to receive certain benefits after separation. I agree, that's the problem. I didn't get it, and I'm being denied my eligibility for these benefits. Ensure that copy 1 given the soldier when present on separation date or mailed to the soldier after the separation date and after ascertaining the soldier is alive and well and the soldier status is unchanged, or any copy given to any agency outside DOD does not contain the following information, right? So they're not going to have, that's why the copy 1 is shorter, because it doesn't have this authority for separation, narrative reason, separation program designator, reentry eligibility code. Provide narrative reason for separation to the Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Labor, Department of State Veterans Affairs, right? So that's like the copy 6. Got some of it, but doesn't have all of it. But the copy 1 doesn't have any of these things. Well, I never signed mine, so I wasn't there to sign it. Must mean they mailed it to me. I never got copy 1. I never got copy 4. I never seen them until copy 1 was, apparently delivered to a mailing address. Provide copy 4 of the DD-214 to soldiers before he or she departs on permissive temporary duty. On permissive temporary duty / transition leave. However, advise soldier that copy 4 does not become an official document until after their separation date. I say I never got mine. I should have got it before I separated. And then this other one, copy 1, I should have got after the date, because this one I would have got for when I went on leave, which I did. I went on leave before I got out. Right? So I actually ETS'd when I was sitting in Michigan. And then sometime after, I got the copy 1, but I don't remember getting copy 4. Okay, so what do we have to do with them? Let's see, preparing the DD-214. The DD-214 is not intended to have any legal effect on termination of soldier service. You are never out of the military. This doesn't terminate your service, it just changes your status in the service. Are you active duty, retired, are you a veteran, you're discharged? What are you? But apparently you're still in the service. Except as provided below, the DD-214 will be prepared for each soldier as indicated. Active Army soldiers on termination, blah, 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 for ETS, physical disability, punitive damages, for things under the UCMJ. All sorts of reasons they could create one for you. RC soldiers separated for cause or physical disability regardless of length of service. Enlisted personnel released on active duty for reason void enlistment. I don't know if I want to read all these fine details. This is the thing. This is very fine detail, one after another. And it really, what I'm showing you applies to me, but not to everybody necessarily. But if you were to read through it one line at a time and say, okay, does that apply to my document, yes or no, you could be highlighting your own copy. This is what they are supposed to do to create the damn thing, right? Completing the DD-214. The information on all 8 copies of the form must be legible. Each block of the form must have an entry. So they can't do like they did on mine, or they didn't put any leave date in there. Days accrued, leave paid. Should say none, right? But it's blank. Well, if we're going by the book, well, that by itself is wrong. Right? Blocks 11, 13, 14, and 18 will begin directly under the block number. Okay. When DD214 has been prepared in air, for example, should not have been prepared at all. Yeah, that's one example. Maybe it shouldn't have been prepared at all. But really, it hasn't been prepared, right? I never got a DD214. We got to quit thinking we have a DD214. No, we have a document that claims to be a DD214 that's fraudulently done. The TCs, these are the people that do it, are not routinely authorized to reissue a Form DD214. Okay, for soldiers released from active duty due to void or voided enlistment, the following will apply. In Block 9, command to which transferred, enter NA. It's funny because on mine, Block 9, command to which transferred, I have an NA. And so that's one reason, because I had a voided enlistment. But another reason, as we'll see, to put in NA is because I was retired. So, date of birth, okay, reserve obligation, place of entry, command to which transferred. From DD214 item 9, entry determinations, table 2.1, right? So you go look at the table and it'll tell you the reasons that could be whatever is in there. Primary specialty, record of service. The soldier was released from active duty because of voided enlistment, added 0000. All right, it says add 0000. Doesn't say to add 00 some month 00. Right? It's all numeric, I guess, is what I'm saying. Because I looked at the guys, and on some of his, he had like DEC for December instead of 12. Okay, accrued leave paid. Should say none. Mine doesn't have anything. Now, this dental exam and treatment for prior separation, this is for everybody, I think, is a telltale. Right? Because they say I'd never had within 90 days prior to separation. I did not have dental care. This form has changed over time, and so the new ones actually just have its own box now with that statement in there with a yes or no to be checked. And there's types that are older than mine that, they have whatever they have, but they specifically ask or have to put in if you had dental care or not. Well, if you didn't have a dental checkup, as it turns out, that's an in-hospital exam you didn't have, and so they could decide not to release you because you didn't have all your exams. And you could then decide to remain on active duty until the exam's been done. So if it's never been done, it doesn't change the fact you're still on active duty. And so you have all this accumulated time that we're not getting credit for, but somebody else is taking credit for. Because your DD214 is not worth a tinker's damn as far as a legal document, other than to show that fraud's been committed. Okay, remarks. This is block 18. Mandatory entry. Data herein, subject to computer matching with DoD or with other agencies for verification purposes and determining eligibility or compliance for federal benefits. That is supposed to be in the box. It's a mandatory entry in box 18. That's this box here. All right, so do you have it in there? Right, if somebody has a newer one, like I said, mine's a relatively old version of this document. So if somebody has a newer version, send me theirs. You got a long form. I'd like to see how much it's changed. But this rule, excuse me, this was written in 2000, right? So this is going on 20 years old. At least since then, it said that this is a mandatory entry. Well, here's another one. Soldier has or has not completed first full term of service. These things have to be in the box. If the narrative reason for separation at DD214 is completion of required active service, then enter has. Right? So if you completed your active service like I did, then it should have said soldier has completed first full term of service. But it doesn't say that. And it doesn't say that, this has got to be, is subject to computer matching with DoD or with other agencies for verification purposes, and determining eligibility or compliance with federal or compliance for federal benefits. Well, we want somebody to do that. Soldier retiring for length of service, enter, subject to active duty recall by Secretary of Army. If you retire, does it say that in yours? And then they should put in individual or reserve, put that in a block 9, okay? And they have all these different things, right? These are all things that should be in block 18. It's block 19. Where did you go? Mailing address, okay, that's simple enough. Request for forwarding copy. Signature of soldier being separated, right? Signature indicates the soldier has reviewed the form. I didn't, and accept the information as being correct. I don't, to the best of their knowledge. I know better. Request soldier sign the original in ink using a ballpoint pen, ensuring signature goes through on all copies. When soldier is not available, which means you're either discharged in absentia or physically unable, but which one? Right? Enter soldier not available to sign. Remember, no deviation is allowed. But that isn't what they put in mine. It doesn't say soldier not available to sign. It says member unavailable for signature. Well, that's a deviation. When soldier refuses to sign, put soldier refused to sign. Right? Very specific wording. Official authorized to sign. Well, that'd be this guy that said he was the adjutant general. Him. What did he do? What's it say about him? This signature indicates the information in the certificate is as correct as the records permit, that a quality control check has been made, and that the separation is valid and authorized by approval authority. Well, who's the approval authority that they're speaking for? He's working for the Adjutant General, so the Adjutant General Corps is the one that said it's fine. They're the ones committing treason. You guys got something to answer for. Type of separation, right? Enter the appropriate terms listed below. You got release from active duty. Now this is, right, where mine says discharge. Type of separation. Discharge, hey, that would be me. Retirement, release from active duty and order to active duty in another status. Release from active duty training. Release from custody and control of the Army. Release from ADT and discharge from Reserve Army. Return to ARNG. Well, you can see one of those says release from custody and control of the Army. So if they didn't use that one, then you were not released from the custody and control of the Army. You're still in the Army, which means you're subject to the UCMJ and you have the right to trial by court-martial. And if you go to a court with a gold fringe flag, you need to say, this is a military court, and I claim the right to trial by court-martial. Because that isn't what's happening when you go to court. You're going to some kind of court of the unprivileged belligerent, right? Where they're going to get you to self-confess that you're an unprivileged belligerent by getting you to agree that you're somebody other than who you are, right? Use a fictitious name for you. Separation authority. Okay, character of service, and you have these choices here. I got honorable. Separation authority is to be completed on certain ones. A soldier ordered to something, self-terminating order, blah, blah, blah. Separation code, well, we saw where we get that. It says, right, they come from AR 635-5-1, which provides the corresponding separation program designator code for the regulatory authority and reason for separation. Right, that would be the narrative. For a United States Military Academy cadet who fails to graduate, enter the order number, source, and date. Normally, when Block 25 contains self-terminating orders, enter NA. However, this could differ for RC reserve component soldiers ordered active duty to support contingency operations, specific guidance, blah, blah. Okay. Reentry code AR 601-210 determines RA, regular Army, and USAR, United States Army Reserve, reentry eligibility and provides regulatory guidance on the RE codes. These codes are not applicable to officers, USMA cadets, right? Military Academy cadets who fail to graduate. Well, we're not talking about them. Or reserve component soldiers. Well, we're not talking about them. So, narrative reason for separation. This is based on regulatory or authority and can be checked against the narrative or against the cross-reference in AR 635-5-1. Right? Does it say what it says? And then you got the date of lost service. Soldier request copy 4. Always enter yes and provide this copy to the soldier before taking permissive temporary duty and or transition leave. Well, mine doesn't say yes. It's blank. Member requests a copy of 4. It should say yes. Instead, they put in a blank with initials. Right? But that isn't supposed to be in there. It's supposed to say yes. And they were supposed to have given me one, but it doesn't say they did. So then quickly, let's just go, because this is really the only thing to do with this other manual, then, this 200-10. Where's that at here? Reentry code, AR 601-210. And I have a re-entry code, according to this, RE1A. RE-1A. Now the problem is you put it in that way, it comes up U.S. Air Force reentry codes. Well, I'm not in the Air Force. I'm not in the Navy. So this manual has them in for all the different branches. But I'm in the Army. So I have RE1A. Applies to soldiers separated prior to the effect date of this regulation. These codes will not be used. Eligibility. Qualified for reenlistment provided reason and authority does not preclude reenlistment or require a waiver. Applicant may not reenlist until 93 days after separation if otherwise qualified. Running qualified to reenlist. Well, then that's, contradictory to what this says. This says I'm qualified to reenlist. And the code note 7 to this says that I'm not, that I'm barred from reenlistment. Well, veteran, what do you call them? Veterans. Well, the people that help the veterans out. Veterans officer. They'll come to me. How come these things are different? So we'll go back to that. Okay, that was, that's all that's for, is it will tell you, well, what that code means. And mine says that I can be reenlisted, or I can reenlist. So there seems to be a problem. And then it goes on about distributing, Okay, it talked about in Block 9, the DD-214, Item 9 entry determination, right? And so here's the choices for NA. There's very few. All right, one is discharge, no further military status. Well, that would mean they kicked you out of the Army, right? But they didn't kick me out of the Army. Because it could also mean that I was placed on the AUS retired list and not transferred to the retired reserves, or the USA retired list, or the temporary disability or disabled retired list, or permanent disability list. And so I'm thinking that's what they're doing. They're putting us on this one of these lists here, based on what we're going to look at in this chapter 4 in the next manual. And that, basically I've been disability retired since I got out in the first place. All right. So, all of those give you things to point at to say, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong when you take it to the Veteran Service Officer, the VSO, or you file an Article 139 complaint, or whatever it is we're going to do to try to get some resolution to this. But it's not going to be going to the thing that calls itself a district court, because it really isn't a court. They don't have a proper oath of office. They're not in the judicial branch of the government. They're in the administrative branch. Okay. So this may take a little while to go through, and, after a while it gets to be a lot to take in, right? And I'm not going to really go through it with the idea of trying to teach it to anybody as much as just pointing out the facts and making a public record of it. But for me, because mine says, and it will be different for whatever yours says, whatever's in this box here is the reason that you were separated, or the reasoning for your separation. And you'll see in here that most of these are bad. Performance and conduct, discharge in lieu of a court-martial, alcohol and drug abuse, separation for pregnancy, defective enlistment, re-enlistment and extensions, separation because of dependency or hardship, separation for convenience of the government, separation for expiration of service obligation, which is the one I should have, character of service, description of separation, on and on and on. It's got a whole bunch of different reasons for doing an administrative separation. Separation for misconduct. Separation for unsatisfactory performance. Instruction and benefits on an honorable discharge. I'm going to have to read that one closer again. It goes da-da-da-da-da. But mainly I want to get through some of the notes at the beginning, because all of these things start at the beginning. They don't start at Section 4. No, they start at Section 1. And there's probably bits of information that are handy to know, like who's responsible. Statutory authority, right? So they're saying that this administrative procedure is statutorily authorized by all of these sections of the United States Code. Separation pay. Eligibility for payment of separation pay is governed by Department of Defense instruction, da-da-da. So if you were separated, it could be you're due some separation pay. Processing goals, right? So here it says DA Form 5138 is used to ensure the processing goals are met. They have these goals, and they're supposed to use this form to prove that they met them. And so where's your copy of a DA Form 5138 showing that, they properly did your processing? Because the DD-214 is just a document, for to put on that the process has happened. But there's a whole freaking process to go through to be administratively separated. You got to have a hearing. Separation of favorable personal or suspension of favorable personal action. When suspension of favorable personal action per Army regulation, something happens is initiated solely because a soldier is being considered for separation under Chapter 13. It is later determined that the soldier will be processed for separation for medical reasons, right? See 1.-33. The soldier's immediate command will expedite action to remove the suspension action. So there's this thing about being soldiers will be processed for separation for medical reasons. The enlisted discharge transfer process. There's sub-functions. You got voluntary, you got involuntary, you got miscellaneous, you got your retirement. I got involuntary. I'm not at all happy with that. Separation orders. Authority for separation per this regulation will be included in directives or orders directing soldiers to report appropriate transition center for separation processing. Who went and did that? Right? Where's the order that told you to report to the appropriate transition center for separation processing? Apparently, I never went because I didn't sign my paperwork. Except as provided in 1 and 2, the Army National Guard of the United States. Right now they call it the Army National Guard of the United States. They also got the Army National Guard, and they got the Michigan National Guard. You know, which one are we speaking of? And then the United States Army Reserve is USAR, right, which is different than Army National Guard of the U.S. Well, you could be separated because of a void enlistment. The order will be include, right? If you are separated for void enlistment, this voids individuals' enlistment in the Army Reserve. Where's the order? Right? They're going to kick you out. They're going to issue an order. The military personal records jacket. Now, is that the official record, or do you need to ask for the military personnel records jacket by that particular name to get the thing that you want, as appropriate, with a copy of separation order and documentation of the separation action? So I'm going to ask for the military personnel records jacket from the military through its Freedom of Information Act. That was at, they actually had a procedure for it, for freedom of information through the military. I'm going to do it that way and see if I can get that one. Instead of the official jacket, I want the military personnel records jacket. Because I think the official one is this local file they're talking about. Or it isn't. It's just something else that doesn't have everything in it. Then they got stuff for U.S. Army Reserves. Okay, separation soldiers. Disposition of proceedings and records. When separation is ordered, where's the order? The approved proceedings will be sent to the commander who has the soldier's records for separation processing per AR 635-10. Probably should look that up. The original copy of the proceedings will be filed in the permanent section of the soldier's MPRJ as appropriate per 600-8-104. Right? All these procedures, all incorporated by reference. Going to have to look at it. If the separation authority recommends involuntary separation, they did to me. Well, I'd have 18 more years, so nope. When the separation authority does not order separation, the proceedings will be filed. So when the separation authority does not order separation, which must be what happened because I really don't have a DD-214. I must not have been separated. And ultimate disposition of the board proceedings will be governed by AR 25-400-2. If we don't read these and get the information ourselves, they're not going to tell us what they say, right? We're going to have to do the research on these particular ARs that come out of these other manuals and go see what they say, and then, make sure that you can say, yeah, check it off, it's been done. All right, when soldiers considered for discharge because of fraudulent entry, they got something to do. Respondent, whether to be separated or retained, will be furnished a copy of the board proceedings. I never got my copy. The proceedings will not include any written medical testimony or reports or so forth. Only commanders. Okay, yeah. Active duty determinations requiring action by commanding general as set forth in regulation will be forwarded to this office here unless otherwise specified. So I'm thinking he has to do something because I need an active duty determination. Can I go back on active duty to claim my retirement? At the age of 60, everybody who's been in the military is due a retirement. Right? That'd be in those other videos I did. So I'm trying to claim mine. And it's easy to tell, well, people aren't claiming their retirement because the retirement fund for the military has about $1 trillion in it. That's with a T, trillion. But they're only paying out $50 billion a year. And they get more in new revenue to cover that than, so they're never touching this money that's in this freaking, in this fund. It's like $1 trillion of retirement money in the fund. Why aren't we claiming our money? Why are they withholding it from us? Well, because in my case, they're saying I can't go back on active duty long enough to retire. And that you can only retire on active duty. So they could change your status, go in, retire. It's like these football players that, they get a contract for a day so they can retire from the team they played with. It's no different. Okay, administrative separation of board hearings. Yeah. Suspension of execution of approved separation. Wow. So it could be approved and then they could suspend it. Separation authority. Who? So now this isn't, right? This isn't this separation authority. No, this is the person. These are the people that can actually do it. Like the General Court Martial Convening Authority. For cases of AWOL over 10 per chapter 10. So I could be considered AWOL because this thing here, because I didn't sign this, right? And I didn't appear to have this, where was it? Dental care. I didn't get any dental care. Well, is that because I didn't appear to have dental care? So I'm AWOL and I didn't have my dental care done? Commanders who are special court-martial convening authorities are authorized to approve or disapprove separation on the following chapters listed below. Right? So depending on what's in this box here, right, chapter 4, mine says, here's chapter 5, 6, 7, I'd have to try to find chapter 4 in this. Haven't gotten to that level of detail yet. Instead, I'm just going to go, and say, hey, it's been done wrong, it's fraud, and I want it's a UCMJ Article 139 complaint. Action by commanders having separation authority. Separation after expiration of term. Okay, but this is the best one. Medical, dental care required or sick in hospital when period of service expires. A soldier may only be considered for retention past the set release date when one or both of the following apply. Continued health care is required. Must be in hospital status, but not necessarily occupying a bed. Well, that's what dental care is, right? It's health care. They didn't say medical. They didn't say dental. They said health, which is medical and dental, right? So that's one reason they could do it. They could consider retaining you past your separation date if you still had health care. Physical disability processing is required or has been initiated. They could have done that too. The request for retention will be submitted per paragraph BC below. Soldiers determined medically fit for retention separation will be retained past the set date. Soldier being retired from action length of service will not be retained on active duty unless his or her medical condition indicates referral of the case to a physical evaluation board. No soldier will be retained past his scheduled date. without written consent signed by the soldier, unless they can't find you, then they'll say that you signed it. Right? If the soldier is mentally incompetent or otherwise unable to sign, the next of kin or legal representative will be requested to sign for the soldier. Well, who would be your legal representative if you were in the military? Your commander. Right? He could have signed it for you. The consent affidavit will be filed with the soldier's that particular file again. It would be on the DA Form 201. Where did it say? If the soldier is unable to sign and the next of kin or legal representative cannot be located or will not indicate whether or not the soldier will be retained, the soldier will be retained. So they just retain you if they decide to. Jeepers, man. Hang on just a second. Okay, so here it says here the soldier's MPRJ. Right? Well, that isn't what they call the record when you get it from Veteran Service Records. That is called the OMPF. So they're different records. And the one that has the information that we need, apparently, is this other one. The MPRJ, which it talked about getting the information by request. You had to do a written request, I talked about it a little bit early in the video. I'm not going to go back and find it right now. But it would be done per this Army Regulation 2555, which is the Department of Army Freedom of Information Act. So every branch of the military is going to have their own Freedom of Information Act system. And I'm going to ask this way to get this document, the MPRJ, right, as a privacy act, because I'm the owner of the record. Okay, so this is all talking about medical stuff, right? So this is really simple. I didn't have a dental checkup, so I still had a need to have a dental checkup per the rules. And because of that, they were supposed to do certain things, like the medical facility commander will send requests for retention endorsed to the soldier's commander. Regular Army personnel include the following: retention required approval by GM, General Court Martial Convening Authority, right? That may delegate this authority to other military or civilian officials and his or her staff. But one of the things they're supposed to do is soldier will be advised of the advantages of remaining on active duty. So because I was waiting to have my dental checkup, then I should have been told this, that it would be to my advantage to remain on active duty. Why? Advantages while remaining on active duty for completion of hospitalization or medical care or while being processed for disability, medical care and or hospitalization provided, receipt of normal benefits such as pay and allowances, including exchange and commissary privileges. Right? These would be the advantages for remaining on active duty. Eligibility for dependency care, state income tax benefits were allowed. Advantages if processed and found eligible for disability separation. If permanently retired, the soldier may choose the pay most favorable computed per Army regulations or under the law under which she is eligible for retired pay. If temporarily retired, the same selection of pay is authorized, but the minimum pay will not be less than 50% of the base pay, while temporarily retired. If retired, a former soldier and authorized family members would be eligible for certain medical care depending on facilities and staffing availability at uniformed service facilities, certain medical care in civilian facilities, CAR 840-3. That's probably a good one to look at. All these things could be happening because you didn't have a dental checkup, right? And we're not getting the proper record. They're having us, we're going to go here and we're going to get the OMPF, but we don't want the OMPF. We want the, whatever the other one was called. I'll go back and look again. Da 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 da. It goes on and on, right? You could be retained in service awaiting trial or result of a trial. You could be found mentally incompetent. There's all sorts of reasons they could say, well, you're disabled. We're going to give you disabled retired pay, and it's going into the fund, and we're not collecting it because, there's errors in our records that we haven't had corrected. I can't claim the retirement because I'm barred from reenlistment according to the, there you are, bars from reenlistment. Commanders will initiate separation proceedings in accordance with this regulation against soldiers who have received a local bar to reenlistment under provisions of AR 601 200 or 280. Well, it better be in a record someplace. And then it goes on to show what they'll look like, right? These documents have to be in your records. Lots of information in this one particular manual. It's almost too much to comprehend at any one time. So I'm not going to try to do too much more with it, but I did want to take a look at what it said about 4, because that's what I'm in. On and on and on and on. Discharge in absentia. Apparently that was me. I didn't sign it. Better find out why. Right? I want the service officer to find out why I was discharged in absentia. Separation authority will be accomplished by the TP or 2A processing the soldier for separation. It never happened. I've never been separated. I don't have a DD-214. I got a document pretending to be a DD-214. I already go past 4. Jeepers. Okay. Separation for expiration of service obligation. Discharge or release from active duty upon termination of enlistment and other periods of active duty or active duty training. Right? One of them could be for fulfillment of service obligations. It has nothing to do with involuntary discharge. I just fulfilled my obligation. So I'm, because I did, I have these entitled benefits I'm due. And as I pointed out in some of the videos before, that during your time in the service is kicking in like an extra $100 a month into your Social Security account. Above what they're matching from yours, they're putting in an extra $100 a month. Right? So you have a special account that you can only access if you're considered in the military, because it's part of your retirement pay. AR 135.91 defines various service obligations incurred. Okay, I'll look at that. Counseling required for certain retirement eligible personnel. Goes through this list of things. Under 10 U.S.C. 3914 and 3917, a soldier of the regular Army must be on active duty at the time of application for retirement and at the time of retirement. There is no statutory requirement for USAR or U.S. Army National Guard soldiers to be on AD at the time of retirement. But I was regular Army, so apparently, even if I was going to a disability retirement, I have to be able to be on active duty to do it. Enlistment may not be extended solely for failure to apply for or late application for retirement or complete a medical examination in conjunction with retirement. Okay. Soldiers precluded from reenlistment for any reason and discharged forfeit retirement eligibility altogether, as reentry on active duty for purposes of applying for retirement is not allowed. That's why I got to get that changed. That 7 is killing me. Voluntary separation of soldiers serving on indefinite enlistments. Now that's what I should have been, because all enlistments are indefinite. Title 10, United States Code 506. Once you're enlisted, as long as there's a war going on, you stay enlisted. Well, you're in. Right? So I should have been voluntarily separated, serving in an indefinite reenlistment, or an indefinite enlistment. So I'm not really reenlisting. I'm on an indefinite enlistment. Character of service. A soldier being separated upon expiration of enlistment or fulfillment of service obligation will be awarded a character of service of honorable, unless the soldier is in an entry level status and service is uncharacterized. Okay, well, I got honorable. Separations will be accomplished by the TP or 2A processing the soldiers for separation per the separation order issued by the appropriate commander. Well, where's the damn order? Well, it's in a different file. It's not in. At least I don't believe we're going to find it in this. I'm still going to ask for this record, right? This official military personnel file. No, that's not where they put it. They put it in the other one. They put it in this one. What did they call this thing? Go and find it one more time. Yeah, it's a complicated system we have here. Medical, right here. MPRJ. What does MPRJ stand for? Military Personnel Records Jacket. Where is the military personnel records jacket kept? That's what has all these documents in it. And I'm just saying that isn't necessarily the same thing as an official military personnel file. Unless the official military personnel file says it contains the military personnel records jacket, then the jacket could be someplace else. So, okay, you can see that there's reasons to question what's going on, and it all starts with getting this long form DD-214 and looking at the separation code, the reenlistment code, the separation authority, the type of separation, the character of service, and the narrative. And this narrative has to match the JBK, or the separation code. So that's what I'm going to work on next, is trying to figure out what to do with that, how to fill out a FOIA according to Chapter 4, like I think it said, and send one out and see what they had to tell me. But if you could, because, to do this, I need to sit here and do it, which means I'm not working for a living. I'm working for donations. So please help out. PayPal or send it in the mail. Very much appreciated. Okay, we'll leave it there for now. Y'all have a great day. See you soon. Bye.